Welcome to the Evolution Magazine live series. It is March 4th, year 2021, and we are broadcasting live from Happy Rock Farms in Kansas City, Missouri. Tonight is another installment of Veterans on Cannabis with our hosts, Todd Scatini and Chris Wolfenbarger, with special guest tonight, Nick Lowery, Hall of Fame Kansas City Chiefs football player and still leading all-time scorer for the franchise. Our show will get underway in just a few moments, but first, a word from our sponsors. The Missouri Cannabis Industry Association has been our longest-running show sponsor, while providing quality education over many topics in partnership with area cannabis professionals. MCIA is dedicated to a free cannabis market to create supplies and prices that are patient-friendly, with initiatives to support adult-use cannabis, to protect home growers' rights, and expand the caregiving program. Go to mocia.org to learn about memberships, to learn about their certified caregiving program, and learn how to get involved. Thank you, MCIA, for being a show sponsor. Besame Wellness Dispensaries. Besame Wellness is open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Sundays 11 to 5, with 2 locations currently open for your convenience in Smithville on US 169 Highway and in North Kansas City just over the river on Burlington Street, with Berry Road and Liberty locations coming soon. Visit the website for more information like menus, new locations, and other updates. Besame Wellness Dispensaries at besamewellness.com. From the Earth, medical cannabis dispensaries built with our community in mind, here to help people understand the benefits of medical cannabis, while raising awareness for incarcerated Missourians who have been penalized in the war on drugs by working with partners such as Canna Convict Project and the Last Prisoner Project. With 3 locations in Missouri and 2 more on the way, visit From the Earth in Brookside, Independence, and Westside, Kansas City. Open Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., more information at FromTheEarth.com. Illicit Gardens is Missouri's leading licensed cultivators, focused on bringing the finest cannabis flower and products to the medical market. Illicit works with local and national advocacy groups to support the release of cannabis POWs, while bringing responsible medical cannabis use into the mainstream. Check them out on Instagram at Illicit Gardens to learn more. Tonight's video is provided by Cat King Films. Check this out. Cat King Films is offering promotional content, commercials, training videos, wedding videos, and documentary-style video production at an affordable price. A free consultation comes with every project to ensure that it is personalized to your brand. Check out previous projects by exploring the different sections on the newly launched website at catkingfilms.com.
Hello, Evolution, friends and family, Missouri patients, the Missouri cannabis industry. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We have an amazing show, some amazing guests lined up for you, as always. Before I pitch it over to the hosts and our special guests, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Extract ED or Extracted. Ryan Hutton. We had Missouri's first green lab on Monday this week. We took 20 police officers on a tour of a cultivation facility, on a dispensary tour, He trained them on the new laws with medical marijuana here in Missouri, and we also had 8 patients that we brought in who consumed their normal amount of medication. The police officers took them through their field sobriety tests, and we're documenting this data to help not only the officers, but to help Missouri patients figure out the difference between a patient taking their normal amount of medication versus a patient that has overconsumed. We video documented all that. It was on KSHB Monday night. We're going to document or replay that video back next Thursday on our show and cover the whole thing on what took place on that Missouri's first Green Lab study there. So thanks to Extract ED, also Besame Wellness, From the Earth, and then Illicit Gardens. All 3 of them helped put on that series. They're sponsoring all the shows this month, including the show tonight. So thank you so much to our sponsors. We have some great giveaways tonight, by the way. So if you want to get entered into a competition to win a free gift card from the Earth Dispensary, tag a friend, bring them into this conversation, because tonight's conversation is going to be amazing. We have Todd Scattini, Chris Wolfenberger, our veteran-led show. We've talked about in past shows about TBIs and how military and veterans need access to holistic medications for specifically brain injuries and the swelling of those types of injuries. And tonight, we're going to correlate that injury into our gladiators in the arena, our NFL football players. And what an amazing guest we have tonight. Nick Lowery. He's going to be on the show tonight. Obviously, you know who he is. He's a retired Chiefs player, all-time leading scorer in the NFL. But beyond his accomplishments in the gladiator arena, as we're calling it tonight, he's done some amazing things in the community. He's done some amazing outreach projects, and he is ahead of the curve on how we can apply CBD and other holistic medications into what we're seeing now as far as the major injuries in the NFL and how that correlates to the military. We're going to talk about all that tonight. So it's an amazing show. Stick around, tag a friend into that competition, and let's go ahead and hand it over to Todd Scattini and Chris Wolfenberger and Nick Lowery.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Todd Scattini. I'm a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel.
I'm Chris Wolfenbarger, retired Army Combat Medic.
And we are Veterans on Cannabis. So this is our show where we really host the conversation at the intersection of the veteran community and the evolving cannabis policies around the country as we kind of execute this paradigm shift in cannabis relegalization and all of its impacts. And we really focus very closely on kind of where this impacts typically in the veteran community and how it could potentially increase the survivability of our soldiers in combat and our veterans to thrive after service. But tonight we have a really special show. As Clay shared with you, we're talking about gladiators and warriors and how these two classes of people who are typically, very respected by the community and society. However, what we're asking now is, instead of saying, good game or thank you for your service, we're hoping to have you ask folks and to ask your legislators to provide medical cannabis for veterans and to open up the aperture and allow research to take place on a much larger scale across the United States. We have a great show for you tonight. We've got Nick Lowery, and if you want to take it away and give the introduction, I don't want to waste any time.
I'll take it away, and we're not going to waste any time. Chiefs Kingdom, Missouri cannabis community, and everyone else watching from everywhere, we have Nick Lowery as our guest this evening, the legendary kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to just throw a little bit of statistics around so that you can truly appreciate the career that this man had for our beloved city. At the time he retired, Nick was the most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL. He had the most field goals in the history of the NFL, the most 50-yard field goals or more in the history of the NFL, the most games with 2 or more 50-yard field goals in the history of the NFL, and the most accurate point-after-touchdown kicker in the history of the NFL. And, Nick, I've got a message from you from last month's sponsor, Doug Gallant. at Relief. He says, he's also the owner of Pyramid Roofing. He says, when you have an employee that always does his job right, you don't make him compete for his job. And he believes that if the Chiefs wouldn't have made you compete for your job, we would have been at our 4th Super Bowl, not our 3rd. And he wanted me to share that message with you as a lifelong Chiefs fan. He believed if number 8 was kicking those kicks instead of Mr. Elliott, we would have gone on to win the Super Bowl that year. And
you know what? I appreciate all that. It's just funny because one thing we've learned in the last year is no matter what side you are on, if you're on a side, the media have not been particularly outstanding in covering COVID and the full picture and how that relates to other things. And of course, in this case, I don't mind competing for my job. I was the most accurate kicker, but I was also kicking at 86%, which was way above anybody else in the NFL. It was just the first year of free agency, and unfortunately, Carl and Marty weren't on the same page. And it is what it is. You know, I think maybe the lesson from that, by the way, is whether it's this year's Super Bowl or me not finishing in Kansas City as I really wish I had, it's that we don't write our own scripts. We control them as much as we can. As soldiers and warriors, we follow the game plan, then we have to adapt. But in the end, there's still some things that are out of our control. And just being able to stay, I will speak for myself as the kicker, and staying focused on what we can control. That's what we do as players. That's what we do as human beings. And that's what we do to be winners, is just be the best we can be. And I had to learn from that. I wish I'd never left Kansas City.
well, we're glad to have you back with us now. I heard something on 810 Sports Talk Radio a couple of weeks ago. Do you know what Clark Hunt's first personnel decision where he had an impact was?
No.
His dad, he'd been beating up his dad. He wanted to be a part of the process, and he went over and charted you and Jan Stenerud's kicks. And he went to, you might remember that day, it's not nosed Clark Hunt, charting your kicks with you and Jan Stenerud, and he went to his father and he said, "Dad, I think this might be the guy that replaces Jan Stenerud, who's in the NFL Hall of Fame." And I think he nailed it. I think you're a Chiefs Ring of Honor Hall of Famer, and so congratulations on that. That was the first player input that he ever made.
Well, he was charting us every single day, how far the kick was from, whether it was good or not, how quickly we got the ball off. And after a month of competing, and it averaged 107 degrees in 1980. By the way, for those listeners that are younger, there was football, there was air, there was Arrowhead Stadium before, back in the day. Just trust me on that. And Marv Levy, who went on to be a Hall of Fame coach for Buffalo, told us that from that point on, he told Clark, any kick that took more than 1.33 seconds would be considered no good. And Jan didn't like that because he was maybe a little bit slower getting the ball off. And I had been cut by 8 teams 11 times. I was hungry and I was ready. And a lot of the motivation behind my life is, you know, in 2 years, I went from being cut to beating out the greatest kicker in the history of the game and breaking several of his records in my very first game of field goals for the Chiefs, and going on to have a great career. And it's so persistence, belief, hard work, you know, those are the values that really are what make America great, what make anybody great.
Well, that is an excellent segue into.
Can't hear Nick.
I can't hear Nick. That's an excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Now we can.
This is an excellent segue into what I want to talk about. As a gladiator of the gridiron, we were blessed to get to follow your career. But after your football career, you've become very much a warrior for NFL players' rights, basically all of humanity's ability to get access to the best life. And those translate very directly into what our warriors face when they come home, after suffering massive traumatic brain injuries and CTE. Could you speak a little bit about your participation in the Mike Webster movie Concussion?
Well, it wasn't my participation in the movie, but just simply witnessing Mike Webster coming with Marty Schottenheimer in '89 and then 1990, and what influence he had, and then following him and his wife, who's still a good friend on Facebook. We exchange texts several times a week, and seeing what he went through. One story that I'm going to tell tonight is that here was this mountain of a man, a wonderful human being, very quiet, spoke with his actions, all of these Pro Bowls and Super Bowl victories for Pittsburgh. When his career was over, he, at some point, with his wife, said, we need to sell our house. And it didn't sell immediately. And he walked into the office of a friend of mine, the wife of a good friend of mine, and she was their real estate agent. She was only about 5 feet tall, barely 100 pounds. And he picked her up, lifted her off the ground from the neck, and said, if you don't sell my house, if you don't stop screwing me, I'm going to kill you. And that was not Mike Webster. That was what CTE had done for him, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Anybody that has been awake in the last 5 years has seen a lot about that. Junior Seau, Dave Duerson, my friend Kenny Stabler, ironically the nemesis and of Len Dawson at times with the Chiefs, but who ended up, I was very lucky to get to know him. And so what that movie was about, we hosted, thanks to Sony Pictures, a pre-premiere of that movie, and I got several hockey players, the play-by-play and color guy for the Coyotes that are the NHL team here in Arizona. I got a bunch of star NFL players. I got the assistant head coach of the Coyotes, and I had neurologists from a number of the hospitals here, and including Dr. Sidney Pardino from Palm Springs, who is an expert on concussions and neurology. And we talked about CTE. And really since then, I've been working with a company named Canaway, which you have back there. Very proud to be aligned with a company that really created a lot of the space for CBD, fought a lot of the legal battles, which we have to do sometimes, and have learned a great deal about what was happening to Mike Webster. And a couple of years later, I was on MSNBC with Dr. Bennet Omalu, who's the one played by Will Smith, not exactly an unknown name, who thought this was an important subject to the degree to which he would actually play him. And it gave some legitimacy to this. And as you know now, we're a bit more careful. I mean, in the playoffs this year, Patrick Mahomes had what most people think was a concussion. He was out for a few seconds. They did the concussion protocol. He was back. But, you know, that is something you've got to do for every player, for every person, and certainly your $500 million quarterback. And so by fighting for the truth about the science,
yes,
the real science, not the hype science on either side, by fighting for the truth, by fighting for the best science, we can learn and apply this. And I've come to know, and when you'd like, I can recite a number of studies. There are 30,000 plus white papers on the positive effects of CBD, and over 200 conditions. I can tell you, we have set up at Canaway a website called www.echoconnection, ECHO connection, one word.org. 200 different conditions on there, from depression to Alzheimer's and on, arthritis, etc. And 1,500 papers. Most of these have 5 to 10 different papers on it. So you can see it does work. In fact, I know this is a long preamble, but one of the interesting contradictions is that the U.S. government has its own patent, which I know you know of. It's called patent number 6630507 by Dr. Julius Axelrod, not some quack doctor, a Nobel Prize winner. And it's called Cannabinoids as Antioxidants and Neuroprotectants. So the science is there. And I'd like to go into the history of how we got to this place back in 1937 when cannabis was demonized. But we're out of that era now. And I've witnessed a complete sea change because all of us have done our part. The media are so much more open to the truth about this.
Yes.
And it can replace, as you all know, and you probably recited this many times, at least half of all the drugs everybody listening and watching on this show is taking right now. And what does that do for your health, for your clarity of thought? What does that do, for the true health of this country and really the world when we recognize and use this natural substance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are on a paradigm shift here in terms of medicine, and we believe we're kind of leading the way in what could be a revolution in medical affairs, right? With cannabis at the basis of that. That's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing with us about the echoconnection.org. I think sharing this information is so incredibly important, and I think that our organizations, the NFL and the NHL and the DoD, should really be seeking to embrace this. We are asking for leadership out of this, and you're certainly showing that, Nick. And I'm hoping that NFL coaches, who I consider, and owners, who I consider kind of the generals of the NFL, I hope they take the same approach to this as a position from a position of leadership, where they're really seeking to understand what those of us who have served in uniform, either on the field or in combat, what we're asking for, because those of us who are out and who have been able to experience it personally and who have read the studies and seen all of this happening, we're begging for them to do this, to show that leadership on the subject.
One of the most frustrating things as a retired combat medic, and Nick, I know you deal with this as you deal with retired NFL players as well. We spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on the next best helmet for a football player, for the next best helmet for a hockey player, for the next best helmet for our warriors on the battlefield,
Yep.
and virtually nothing on how to strengthen their brain and make it more resilient to the damage that their profession has put them in. And you mentioned neuroplasticity, and a massive cannabinoid CBD specifically creates an environment inside of the skull that has so much more neuroplasticity, which allows the brain to survive those traumatic either collisions or blasts. But then, as a medic, I always wanted to be able to treat those patients. And if I would have been able to give them a hyper dose of CBD in an aerosol form or something like that right after the blast, I could have cut down on a lot of that swelling and a lot of that intracranial pressure that exacerbates the traumatic brain injury. And
Yes.
and honestly, my hands were tied. There was nothing for me. And the fact that we're having this conversation right now, Todd has been working with contact at the VA very closely, and the NFL, I believe, has taken almost 180-degree turn on their view of CBD and cannabinoids.
Yeah, could we talk about that?
You know,
What is the
even
NFL
in the
saying?
state of Arizona. Well, let me just say, even in this state in Arizona, I would never have predicted that in the last election, just like that, perceived as a conservative state, boom, it passed legalization essentially of marijuana. And what's happening now is, I think what happens is it becomes so personal when the message you're bringing is not just the intellectual science, but it's the emotional connection. Because I know this helped my father, my mother, my brother, my teammate.
Yeah.
It changes everything. It changes the empathy you have. It becomes real. The NFL Players Association sent out something about 3 weeks ago requesting data, and our company and a company called Neuropathics, actually, which is a cousin of Canterway, also was approached to provide information, the latest on what CBD can do. So it's I'm not sure if it's the tortoise and the hare, and we're definitely still dealing with the tortoise, but things are inexorably moving in that direction.
Yes.
And there will be a sea change, a point where it absolutely goes to the next level. And the NFL, to their credit, is very careful in what they do. You've got 32 of the richest people on the planet who have a great thing going. The average NFL team has gone to over $2 billion per team. The Dallas Cowboys are somewhere around $3 billion. The Chiefs are over $2 billion. And their players are being paid a lot. So they have to look at them even more so as an investment. Just an aside, since I've been with the NFL in these 41, 42 years, the tax base requires or allows NFL teams to depreciate their players in 4 years. So we're like a desk or a piece of furniture.
Yes.
And so, this is a business. Marty Schottenheimer, God rest his soul, just passed away. At the Hall of Fame induction of Derek Thomas and Hank Stram in Canton, I was with him in the tent with his brother Kurt Schottenheimer, who I love to death as well, who was my personal coach with the special teams. I said, Marty, when are you going to come back? Because he'd done a pretty good job with Washington and been let go. And then he'd won a semi-pro league in North Carolina. And I said, so when are you going to come back? Because it was sort of unrequited. We all knew that Marty was a great coach, just had not had great success in the playoffs. And he said, Nick, I'm afraid that you and I were part of the last generation of the NFL when it was still a game. It's just a business now. And so I give credit to that same person, Clark Hunt, because he's made a real effort to make the Chiefs a family despite all of those business, hardcore, cold-blooded decisions. But because players are investments, hopefully they're going to realize the best way is to be proactive. So I'm excited about this. The NFL Players Association is looking at it more. The NFL itself, in the last collective bargaining agreement, raised the number of microns to test positive, the threshold from 25 to 150. So, I think there are a lot of players now that are self-medicating already. And let's also, guys, make a big distinction between marijuana, which is like your short, curly-haired sister who's about 4 feet tall, if you will, and those curls are the leaves. The leaves have the THC in concentration versus hemp, which is what my company deals with, which grows to 15 to 20 feet in 100 days and is limited right now to 0.3% or about 1/60th of a marijuana cigarette. In fact, they may be raising that to 1%. In our research with Dr. Stuart Titus and our CEO, Blake Schrader, we think that 1% is still a place where there's no high,
Correct.
And yet there are all these other benefits and no toxicities either.
We've got a question from one of our viewers. How do fans support access to cannabis for their favorite NFL team? If you wanted to speak to that fan and say this is how you can make a difference, what would you tell them?
Wow. I would, first of all, the average fan can always write a letter and write the paper itself, call in like you're doing, get more educated, go to echoconnection.org so you see the neuroplasticity benefits, and I can go into a lot of detail, and I will in a second. Ask me about Dr. David Schubert and the Salk Institute here in a second. The other thing is that they can write their legislatures and just say that we want to make sure that the great players like Patrick Mahomes have 20-year careers in the NFL. If Tom Brady can do it, Patrick can, if we can get our offensive line to protect him a little better. But he's a runner, and we have to protect him.
Yep.
It's inevitable that he's going to get hit. We need to make sure not just him, but the whole team can recover. It means the quality of the game is sustained as well. Not to mention that funny thing called, being humane, just as it would be humane for this to be provided by the VA on a regular basis, whether it's in Arizona or Missouri or Kansas, wherever it is, so that players that have had these impacts, they can recover faster. Think about, let's get real specific, at Al Asad Air Force Base, where I went with Christian Okoye in 2006 in Baghdad. That was bombed 2 days ago. And one of the construction engineers coordinating was killed with a heart attack. But all those other soldiers there, they were in bunkers. but they are not prevented completely from the concussive
Absolutely.
blast
Yeah.
of those missiles. And so this is the kind of thing, far more than a helmet, as you alluded to, that will protect those soldiers. By the way, that's not only good for them, it's good for the force to stay healthy and ready so it can fight back.
Yeah.
So from any angle, it's a good thing, and it can be done responsibly.
Absolutely, and it seems just kind of cruel and unusual for any like leadership of an organization to not want to have people thriving while in service, right? But beyond just being able to thrive in service, we want them to be able to thrive after service, and because no one wants their kid going in the military thinking that they're going to come out with either an addiction to opioids or post-traumatic stress, and no one wants their son to start to play football or their daughter to start to play football because they're going to become addicted to opioids and come out with CTE, right? So it seems like it's just kind of preventative in nature, a prophylaxis or a wellness product as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, and this is UCLA Torrance talking about CTE, by the way, long-term dementia and Alzheimer's and the rates of suicide. The amyloid betas, which are the clumps of cells in the brain, when the neurons, which are the most delicate, most powerful, most sensitive cells in the body, when they begin to break down, just like any cell does over time, they begin to glue to each other and then collapse into each other. And those clumps, or amyloid betas, or beta amyloids are sometimes called, inhibit memory, facilitate rage, impulse control is sabotaged. All these things that are part of the symptoms of dementia, Alzheimer's, and CTE. My brother Chris, unfortunately, has Alzheimer's and dementia. I love him to death. I've had him on over 200 milligrams a day of our CBD products at Canaway because I know it's going to help him. His mood is better, his alertness, and if it's possible, don't ask me how, but because he has been getting regular memory care, his memory scores have actually gone up a little bit, which is almost unheard of with Alzheimer's and dementia. Right. So from any number of angles, this is a good thing. We just have to educate people to the point where this tired old, and even cool culture of opioids and other addiction-causing short-term solutions are replaced by things like by things like CBD.
Yeah.
I want to put a couple of faces on this that people can really wrap their head around. We mentioned Junior Seau earlier, and people know that Junior Seau committed suicide, but I don't think the specifics have ever really resonated with the community the way they should. There's a picture of Junior Seau on screen now where he was with the Patriots at the tail end of his career. Junior Seau shot himself, but he didn't shoot himself in a traditional manner. He shot himself in the chest. And if there was ever a warrior that played and left it all on the field, it was that man. And for him to shoot himself in the chest, he did that specifically so that the NFL could study his brain and learn more about CTE. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm trying to find a photo I have with him right after the game-winning field goal in the Pro Bowl, and he's on the field with me. He was just a delight of a human being. And he was also on Ambien, which is something that our other mutual friend, Christian Okoye, was on literally till the day that he started taking our Canaway CBD products. He's been off Ambien ever since. Junior Seau was taking Ambien. If you read up, anybody that Googles Ambien can find that if you begin to use it over a regular basis, over a period of time, it rewires your brain where literally your rational thinking is so sabotaged. You can literally be writing down, your daily list, and it becomes, without you even noticing, go shopping, work out, do email, kill myself, go to dinner,
Right.
And unfortunately, one of my dear friends here, who was featured in USA Today, was roommates with Junior Seau as a rookie, and he was with him celebrating his 50th birthday 4 days before he killed himself, and there was no indication whatsoever. So it's a great tragedy. And this is a man like Dave Duerson who shot himself in the chest because he absolutely knew they had to study his brain, and that was the best way he could make a contribution to ending this scourge.
What a
Wow.
I can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
Todd,
Well, I was listening today as well about Aaron Fernandez, and I know that they said that he had kind of the worst case of CTE that they had ever seen in a person that age after the autopsy after he committed suicide in prison. It just seems like there's just such an intersection here. It feels like it's very obvious, I think, to us, but I think telling this story via stories and by creating plans and opportunities and creating the conditions for research is the way forward. I do want to share with you that we are on our way in Missouri. We had a guest just the last episode. The chief medical executive from AMVETS, Sharisa Jackson, joined us. She's a retired Air Force nurse, and together between then and now, we just submitted an official proposal to the VA to utilize Missouri as a test bed platform for medical cannabis research for the VA. And if there's any way that we could do something collaboratively, I think the more groups we bring in, the NFL and the industry, I think the closer we can get to success, and the faster we can get to success.
Let me just throw in, by the way, once again, for the people that are watching, cannabis is a broad description. It's like lemons and oranges when you have hemp over here and marijuana. I'll give you an example of the power just of hemp with zero THC. Amy Van Dyken, who's a good friend, who was the first woman to win 4 gold medals in the Olympics in swimming, and won 6 gold medals, married a buddy of mine, Tom Ruin, who was the punter for the Broncos. And as many people know, 7 years ago, she was paralyzed in an ATV accident. 3 years ago, I was at it's actually 3 years ago now, at the Jerry Colangelo prostate cancer golf tournament. And she was in her wheelchair, and she just got such a charismatic personality. And I just said, we've got to get you on CBD. So she's 6 feet tall. She's a powerful woman, beautiful human being. And we got her on 150 milligrams. She insisted it be our pure product because Amy's Army, the kids that look up to her, she just didn't want anyone to think anything about that evil, THC. Well, when we shifted with Dr. Stuart Titus and I collaborating to 300 milligrams a day because she's paralyzed, she texted me, and cover your ears if you don't want to hear this, but she texted me, and I still have the text on my phone. Holy crap balls, I can't believe how much better I feel. And a year and a half ago, guys, she was on HBO's Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, having qualified as the second fittest wheelchair CrossFit athlete in the world. Her pain threshold, after we went to 300 milligrams a day, was manageable for the first time in 5.5, 6 years. And so she went from being able to work out once, twice a week, a little bit here, a little bit there, to competing and killing herself every day, to being one of the fittest athletes of any kind on the planet. And her goal now, as she said to me a few months ago, is to win, is to be number one. Of course, COVID's temporarily postponed that, but that gives you an idea. Just keep in mind, I believe our citizens are capable, we all are, of keeping more than one thing true. That marijuana helps in certain ways, hemp helps in certain ways, and based on the needs of each person, it can be done responsibly. And our goal at Kannaway is to have the highest production standards for all of you out there. Go to the company that has the purest, highest production standards, because whether it's eating an apple, a fresh apple, or whether it's taking any of these products, purity, just like any prescription, it has to start with purity, and then it has to be accurate dosage. If you don't have purity, you can't have accurate dosage. And by having accurate dosage, you can be much more targeted, like a good military strike, by the way, on the enemy being whatever your condition is. So be very careful about that. Most of the people I talk to that have had problems, it's because they have not taken the time to get a quality product and not read the backside, and they confused 1,000 milligrams with it's 1,000 milligrams a day. No, it's 1,000 milligrams divided by 33 or whatever it is. Be careful that you're getting the right dosage. If you're down at 15 to 20 to 25%, as my friend Annie Presley, who is a wonderful lady that I'm sure wouldn't mind helping us out. Her husband is Jay Salanders, is Admiral in the National Guard, and Admiral. Anyway, he was whatever they call a general. I guess it's a general.
It's a general in the Guard.
Yeah. Bottom line is this stuff can really, really help. And she thought she was taking about 100 milligrams a day, but she was taking 15 to 25. When she got up to 100 milligrams a day, guess what happened? She had much more clear feedback. Her body told her this is really helping. Of the players that we've given, we've done 230 athletes, a ton of gold medalists, a ton of NFL Hall of Famers. Krishna Koye, as I told you, from the very first day, got off his Ambien, his sleep. Eric Dickerson was on our stage 2 years ago saying that his sleep and his back have been so much better. He's vice president of the Los Angeles Rams for business development. His job is to play golf with sponsors that put in $1 million or whatever in each suite in that stadium. And now he can play golf every day, which means he can be more effective. Simple things like that transform your life. So what we've noticed is that it really has transformed every single player with no toxicities, not a single example of something negative happening to 230 athletes over 2 to 3 years. How about that?
I'm living proof of it. The VA prescribed me Ambien to help with my nightmares after I was attacked by a suicide bomber in Afghanistan. I was on Ambien for 8 years, and a combination of CBD and THC broke me of that Ambien, not addiction, but that Ambien usage. And if you've never taken Ambien, then you don't know. You can't sleep without it because your body doesn't trigger natural
and it's a
sleep
very
cycles.
Abusable drug as well.
Yep.
You know.
So you mentioned family, Nick, and for every one of these players, for every one of these warriors that we've talked about, male or female, we talk about families. And the most horrific family tragedy that's happened to Chiefs Kingdom, I believe, in my 52 years on this earth, is the Javon Belcher story in 2012.
Yep.
And I definitely want to mention Cassandra Perkins. James, do we have a picture of the family? There's a picture of the family right there. We've got a young man in the prime of his career with a beautiful young wife and child. And because of his CTE, that ended up in a tragic murder-suicide where she was found dead in the apartment, and he drove to the Arrowhead Stadium and shot himself there. And he was riddled with CTE. What we need to remember as a community is that this isn't just the players, this isn't just the warriors, it affects every single member of their family.
You know, I mentioned the story of Mike Webster. Of course, Pam Webster divorced him, not because she didn't still love him to death, but she just didn't want to love him to death. She had to get out to protect herself and her family. And unfortunately, that's what happened with Javon. And of course, he did not know that at the age of, I think, 25, he was just coming into his own, just beginning to get some play beyond special teams. And he couldn't manage his rage. He couldn't manage it because he wasn't aware of his condition. And it's debatable whether he could in any way, but what a great tragedy. And so the message is that this impacts not only the player, as you said, but the family and the community. I parked in that parking space. I don't know how many times that he killed himself. It's so hard to believe. And of course, witnessed by Scott Pioli and the head coach for the Chiefs right in front of them. So, I mean, when you're willing to do that, it's just hard to imagine how that that affected a lot of people, and hopefully we'll learn from that. That's all we can do.
Yes.
And make sure that we get better at anticipating and measuring players so that we have an idea while they're still alive. And there's evidence now we're getting closer to being able to do that, so that we know if somebody has CTE or the early symptoms, there can be treatments that can protect them and frankly from the circumstances and the outcomes of CTE.
Excellent. Now you mentioned something about Dr. Salk. Did I get the name right? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that if you'd expand on that.
Dr. Salk, that's actually the Salk Institute, and of course the Salk vaccine was one of the first great, if not the first great vaccine, but the Salk Institute in La Jolla has been doing research on these beta amyloids and finding that by taking CBD, it deconstructs these clumps of cells, which is so powerful. And it also, in their research, they found there something we've known now for about 20 years, that there is such a thing as neurogenesis, that we literally can rehab soldiers that have had very significant impacts, literally and figuratively, on their brains, and get them back to a level of normalcy. And so that's exciting. I think we've been saying for maybe a generation that from now on, the biggest advances in medicine will be around the brain, and that's not going to stop. It's going to continue to be how we can heal the brain and maximize the most important resource we have to living a quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's funny he uses the word resource. Todd and I just had a conversation the other day about the fact that the most valuable asset the United States has is our human resources. And the fact that we're hemorrhaging these heroes
Nice.
at 22, at a rate of 22 a day, people that were willing to stand up and protect our country and our rights to live in a free society. We just can't do it anymore.
Can I jump in on that for a
Yeah,
second?
yes,
I've got
please.
some bad news for you. So, I just believe if you're going to make a difference, then jump in with both feet. So,
Yes, sir.
I met 2 years ago with Dr. Barbara Van Dalen, who I think she still is the head of the Prevents Task Force. It was created by President Trump. It was a cabinet level task force where all the members of the cabinet had to report to the president every couple months on what they were doing to reduce veteran suicide. And I hosted here with Dr. Barbara Van Dalen here in Paradise Valley at the Franciscan Renewal Center. We had a lot of experts, and we had the first town hall along with Texas. We were the first two town halls on veteran suicide held by Dr. Barbara Van Dalen. And the bad news is this: it's not 22. The real numbers was 27. And guess what? Since COVID, the suicide number has gone up in the Army. This was featured on national news, 30% in the Army and 20% overall. So let's do the arithmetic. 22, then 27, 20% of 27, let's say, is 5. That means over 30 suicides a day.
Yeah.
Over 30 suicides a day. How do we ignore that?
It's a crisis.
Talk about
you know?
the scourge and the challenge of COVID, but these are the people that have been sacrificing and serving their country at the highest level, while many of us don't have to because of them, and we're not doing enough.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for saying that and for the recognition of that. And I mean, there's also an intersection there with what's going on within the veteran community. You know, the TBIs and post-traumatic stress often leads to addiction and sometimes homelessness. And I know that's as a special subject for you, and I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about the group you're working with to reduce homelessness for veterans.
Well, you know, guys, one nice thing about not being married, I was almost married 2 years ago, but I got a little bit more free time, and I work with my foundation with children, and that's one way that I get to still feel like I'm, making a difference in the way that God intended. 15 years ago, actually a little bit more than that, I narrated a film called Homelessness and the Power of One, and then at the same time, I met the people that run St. Vincent de Paul in Arizona. And we started a program called Champions for the Homeless. St. Vincent de Paul, one of the more famous institutions, and they really believe philosophically that there's no difference between the giver and the receiver, that everybody's equally important. And so we started by having these events to celebrate and put a human face on the homeless on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter. Then we noticed, well, there's a long time between mid-April and late November, so we had 2 in the summer. This year, we're having 8. We had 2, one on Thanksgiving Wednesday, one on Thanksgiving, one on Christmas. We just had one, sort of extended Valentine's Day last Friday. We were limited. We'd grown in 15 years from 15, 20 volunteers out there serving, providing flowers, and we had great musicians, to 500. Now, in the last few months, because of COVID and the health department's restrictions, we've had to cut back to 15 to 20 volunteers. 40% of the homeless at St. Vincent de Paul are homeless veterans. And funny thing, that when people are treated with respect, with love, with consistent embracing of them as valued human beings, you see this transformation where you can just tell in that little way they believe there still is hope, their lives still matter. And I'll tell you, when I drive home on a Thanksgiving or Christmas or last Friday, it's what life's about. Is there anything better than knowing you've helped somebody feel like they're loved, know they're loved, and help them feel good about themselves? It makes you, as we all know, Kansas City is one of the best philanthropic capitals, if not the philanthropic capital in the country.
Absolutely.
For a good reason. People appreciate what it feels like to serve others and to love others in a way that really makes a difference.
Well, kudos to you on that, and for changing all those lives. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Now, a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity. You had Alice Mangan, Alice CBD, and I out to one of your concussion seminars where Alice won this Nick Lowry signed football right here. Could you tell us about what prompted you to have those concussion seminars, and what has come out of that?
Well, I think what I'm trying to do, I think a lot of politics. I grew up next door to a Supreme Court justice who led the NFL in rushing, Byron Whizzer White, best friends with John F. Kennedy. I mean, how spoiled was I?
All the way.
And then, speaking of the other end of it, 15 years ago, a guy named Muhammad Ali moved in next door to me. I've been just so lucky. What was your question again? Sorry.
Oh, your concussion seminars. What prompted you to start having them?
Yes.
And then what you've done with them?
Yes. Sorry. I may have had one concussion too many myself. The idea to me, having worked in Washington, my dad was senior CIA, et cetera. I worked before I made it in the NFL and the U.S. Senate, is if you get people in the room, get them in the same room. Just let them talk. Let them talk and value listening. It's amazing how most of the issues that we think are so intransigent can be solved, and that's the idea. So we get the football players and the ice hockey players and the NHL players and the basketball players and then the neurologists themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing when you get them all in a room. First of all, you break down a lot of these divisions that don't even need to be there. And I think for a lot of the neurologists, it also humanizes it, makes it more real too. But it's just about pushing things forward by getting the people that are in a position to make a difference, see all sides of the issue so that they really can take action and be clear about how they can move things forward the fastest. So I've hosted these events now 5 times. We did one for the concussion movie. We've done some 3 times with Barrow and Banner and Mayo and my friend Chris Giza, who went to Dartmouth like I did and is an amazing neurologist at UCLA, and all these people that really do care and want to make a difference. So I just felt like it's something that had to be done, and I'm lucky enough, very lucky enough, to be able to help make that happen.
Wow. Well, you are definitely making a difference.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Todd is always, many times on the show, he says, we're looking for leadership. This is a leadership issue. And I just personally want to commend you on stepping forward and putting your time, treasure, and talents towards leading this fight for our Warriors and our veterans and our previous NFL players. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know what? Thank you, brother. Never forget. And, anybody that wants to learn about the foundation, just go to Nick Lowery, NickLowery.org, nicklowry.org. But, here's the other thing. For whatever it is that matters to you, whether it's Todd and Chris and their passions or mine or yours, God, I really believe, has given each of us unique gifts and unique contributions.
Amen.
And the funny thing is, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Just keep doing it. You're going to get better at it. You're going to get better people skills. You'll be able to articulate better. The children of the athletes, by the way, that have been part of Champions for the Homeless, they're the ones that made their 300 or 340-pound dads intimidated and bullied their dads and say, I'm coming back to Champions for the Homeless.
Yep.
Because they never felt the power to help an adult or anyone before at that level. And they felt not only did they make a difference, it felt so good. So now they're addicted to the things that are truly lasting and healthy. And to me, that's part of this art form, if you will, not just the science. The more references we have to doing stuff like this, the better we get at it, the more impact we have. And that's why I'm on this earth. That's why you guys are here. That's why soldiers will, sit in that, put their lives on the line, because they know it's something that they truly believe in. And it's something they'll never change in believing is the way to serve and show gratitude for this life.
Well,
Absolutely.
Nick, I'll speak for Todd and I
Please.
both when I say, and for the entire community here, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us what you're doing. Thank you so much for the leadership, and thank you so much for being on the show tonight. We're hitting that 1 hour mark, so we're going to cut to the break. But I just
Let me just say one last thing, guys.
By all means.
I also, we got together. We had Andy Reid join us with Jim McMahon. Andy Reid was the left tackle for Jim McMahon at BYU, and Andy came out and we did an event, and Duron Cherry was there and some other Chiefs players, and that was about getting these special wheelchairs that allow veterans to stand up. There are, I think, 30,000 veterans that need these special wheelchairs.
Are you talking about Brad Soden's
Transforms their
chairs?
lives. So just want to say, excuse me?
Are you talking about the chairs made by Brad Soden, tank chairs?
Brad Soden, who developed the
Yeah.
Mongo chair.
Absolutely.
And so there's Andy Reid, so there's an example of an NFL head coach saying this is something that's worthy. So we just have to keep pounding with creativity as well, and passion and authentic, coming from the right motives, and good things are going to happen.
Well, thank you so much for
Awesome.
being on the show tonight, Nick.
Yeah.
Todd?
Hey, thank you very much for elevating your voice and bringing this conversation to the forefront. We're doing this on the veteran side. We'd love to link up with you anytime and move forward on a national level as gladiators and warriors.
I would love to, and I have a feeling maybe our friends at Union Station, maybe we'll put together a small little event somewhere in Kansas City, maybe there, and have a few football players, some of the ambassadors perhaps,
Yeah.
from the Chiefs, and some of our awesome soldiers and military vets, and show that we can come together and do great things.
Let's
Yes,
do
sir.
it.
Well,
Let's
thank you
do
for
it.
being on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me. God bless.
Hey, wow. Thank you guys so much. Nick Lowery, thank you so much for being on our show tonight. It's an absolute honor to have your status, not only in the NFL career that you've had, but also in your after career of your impact in the community. So we're looking forward to being a part of everything that you're a part of, and tying that into some of the R&D that we're hoping is going to take place here in Missouri with some of the veterans here, like Todd Scatini and Chris Wolfenberger. Barger, sorry. Chris
Hey,
Wolfenberger.
you got it right.
I got it right. So bad. Okay, so Chris Wolfenberger, sorry. But these are all ideas we have lined up to make Missouri, the Midwest, the center of the United States, to be part of the research and development. And we can do that by tying in our community with our gridiron gladiators, our NFL players, So thanks so much, Nick Lowry, for coming on tonight. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do that, I want to remind you guys, tag a friend to enter the competition for a free gift card from the Earth Dispensary. We're going to have a little update from the Cannon Convict Project, but before that, we're going to give a little shout out to what Nick Lowry has done in his professional career with the Chiefs. So we'll see you guys here shortly.
Football. 1993 is turning out to be the year of the kicker in the NFL. Touchdown seems to be coming harder, but field goals have never been so plentiful. One result, superstar quarterbacks are having to share the limelight with superstar kickers. Nick Lowry, for example. Here's ABC's Dick Schaap.
This will be a 41-yard attempt.
No one kicks better than Nick. Nick Lowry of the Kansas City Chiefs, the most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL.
To make fun of him for his
He was the most dependable, most effective kicker of his era, without question in my mind. When you talk about Hall of Fame, you talk about the best that has ever played the game, Nick Lowry. He's special as a person, he's special as a player, and he's a special addition to what should be an enshrinement to the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio.
Nick was fantastic. Went through the agonizing decision to keep Nick or John Stenerud. He continued at a level which is almost unparalleled in the history of the National Football League.
I happen to have played in one of those games. The thing, actually, no kidding, the ball that he hit from 58 yards actually went into the screen. If that would have broken Tom Dempsey's record, I'm sure of it.
Get into the playoffs. Kansas City wins it, they're in.
His NFL Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. Get over 50 yards, it was no problem. Keeping over 55 yards. It was almost scary. Nick Lowry, who had, sometimes I say, ice running through his veins, used the guy that I want on my team.
Unbelievable leg.
This is to break the tie. Dead solid.
I've studied the league in kickers since 1969, and I told him straight out, I've never watched anybody, Nick Lowry's numbers speak for themselves and are as competitive as any kicker in the Hall of Fame, and in some areas better.
Yeah.
Chiefs Hall of Fame, and this was his NFL Hall of Fame submission video. Very difficult for a kicker to get in. I think he would have eventually, probably.
Hi, this is Chris Berman of ESPN. When we think of the new class in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, please consider kicker Nick Lowry. I know kickers, there aren't many in the Hall, and when Adam Vinatieri becomes eligible, we'll look to him. But if you think of the era that Nick kicked in, primarily the 80s, he had the most field goals. He was the most accurate. He had the most 50-plus field goals. Conditions were much tougher then than they are, say, in the last 2 decades. And I saw him kick for Dartmouth against Brown. We could use another Ivy Leaguer in the Hall.
Hey guys, Chris and Christina with the Cannon Convict Project, here with a short update tonight.
So we just got off a call with the Last Prisoner Project, and we're happy to announce that we will be collaborating with them here in the near future. They bring to us a lot of resources that we're currently lacking, so we're very excited to see what we can make out of this collaboration to assist our POWs with their release. We also want to move on and talk to everyone about the federal level. This is very important for everyone to stay focused on. We need to get this marijuana conversation figured out on the federal level. So please stay engaged with your senators and representatives and email them and call them and write them letters and remind them to support the MORE Act, the Safe Banking Act, the cannabis reform legislation that's being worked on by the special subcommittee with Cory Booker and Schumer. It's very, very important that we get this figured out on the federal level so it can trickle down to the states.
We've got over 17 cannabis reform bills going on right now in Missouri. We need to make sure as a community that we all band together and support the correct one. There are lots of bills that are leaving a lot of stuff left out, so let's make sure that we pick the right one.
And finally, we want to end as we usually do, and that is to remind everyone to keep sending in your support for our POWs pending clemencies. Some of them, this is the only avenue that they have in which they can receive any kind of early release, and we need to get them home to their families as soon as possible. They've already served too much time as it is.
Jump on our Facebook page, jump on our website. We'll have some simple forms, ways that you can just copy, paste, and send that stuff off. It's not anything real difficult. So check us out, Facebook or canaconvict.com, canaconvictproject.com, and we're starting a new thing on Instagram here real shortly.
All right, guys, we hope you enjoy the rest of the show. As always, stay engaged.
The Missouri Cannabis Industry Association has been our longest-running show sponsor, while providing quality education over many topics in partnership with area cannabis professionals. MCIA is dedicated to a free cannabis market to create supplies and prices that are patient-friendly, with initiatives to support adult-use cannabis, to protect home growers' rights, and expand the caregiving program. Go to mocia.org to learn about memberships, to learn about their certified caregiving program, and learn how to get involved. Thank you, MCIA, for being a show sponsor.
What an amazing conversation with Nick Lowery. Oh my gosh. Hope you guys got to see the highlight reel. Amazing advocate after his amazing career with the Chiefs. Thanks so much, Nick Lowery, for coming on the show. Tag a friend if you want to get entered in to win a free gift card from the Earth. And we're going to pass it over to Todd Scatini and Chris Wolfenberger for the second half of the show.
All right, we're going to wrap it up pretty quickly. I got two things for you. All right, one, I know I alluded to it in the discussion with Nick Lowery, but I do want to announce that we've officially submitted a proposal along with AMVETS to utilize Missouri as a research and development platform for the VA. The reason that we've done this, round
of applause.
It's about time. It's about time. But the reason we've done this really is we believe, well, one, we're here, and two, we believe that Missouri has one of the most exemplary medical cannabis programs in the country. I'm incredibly proud of what we've built here. Yes. And I think that we have set the stage for something phenomenal. Missouri has an incredible academic backbone to it with Missouri University and Missouri Western State University as well. I mean, all of these great schools that we've got, K-State, KU Med, right here, all in the vicinity, and an incredible VA hospital. Actually, 3 incredible VA hospitals going across I-70. So we've got a great opportunity there. And we've received some good guidance and feedback from the VA, so more to follow. And as the show continues, we'll keep you updated on how that's going. And then finally, I wanted to share with you that today I sat in on an incredible meeting of cannabis activists, veteran cannabis activists across the country. It was put together by a group called Americans for Safe Access, which is an incredible activist organization focused on science and policy, and really providing access to this plant, and also setting the conditions for research. We had a conversation today because they are now running a campaign which I would ask you respectfully to somehow support. If you go to safeaccessnow.org/Biden VA, you can send a message directly to the new Secretary of the VA urging him to allow physicians in VA hospitals to provide recommendations for veterans for medical cannabis, right? And really urge them to, one, get educated on the subject, learn the most recent science, and support this with research. Because as we said before, I believe that the DoD and the VA should be on the forward-leading edge of medical cannabis research. We have skin in the game. Yep. We have the medical network that is ready to rock, right? With 150 VA hospitals across the country, 1,200 clinics, the largest patient population in the country at 9 million. I think we deserve this opportunity, and we're best positioned to conduct medical cannabis research.
And I'm going to add to that, if you want to move the needle on rescheduling cannabis in the United States, use the veterans as the lever to make that change. If we can get the VA to be able to make medical recommendations, then they have to reschedule. They can't be that duplicitous.
Yeah, I mean, just like Nick Lowry was saying earlier, over 30,000 research papers out now on the effects of cannabis. The research is there. The research has been done. We need to do more. We need to facilitate more, because we really are on the cusp of a revolution in medical affairs, and I believe that we could certainly drive that. So that's our show for tonight. I don't know how to top Nick Lowry, but I certainly wanted to get that out.
I thought it was a spectacular, just an absolute deluge of excellent information. So once again, great show, Todd.
Great show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, big shout out to Chris Wolfenbarger, Veterans Patient Access. Their website's about to go online here.
It'll be by next show.
VPA.vet. VPA.vet. Great UTR, whatever that thing is.
URL.
URL. Thank you. Those are the letters. Great URL. Check them out. They're doing great things in the community. They're working with Todd Scattini with Harvest 360. We're really trying to set the compass or the perimeters for complete R&D for the industry here in Missouri, and it's through organizations like these guys are doing right here, and like the Evolution is trying to promote, and Nick Lowry is trying to promote. We're trying to get everybody on the same page. We're trying to make sure that veterans have access to it, that our gladiators, NFL players have access to it, UFC players have access to it, baseball players, MLB, they are no longer testing for it. So why not? Let's just continue that talk. Take it to the NFL, take it to our veterans, take it to every citizen in the United States. Let's make this happen. It's through conversations like we're having here tonight. It's the only way that this is going to happen. So thanks to our production crew, Level Up AV, James Thomas behind the computer over there, Cat King Films behind the camera here, and our lovely studio resort here, Happy Rock Farms on Main Street in Kansas City. Any of your homegrown needs, these guys are making the best dank dirt you can buy. Let me tell you, they are selling it out the door. They can hardly keep up with demand. If you're looking to grow from soil, reach out to these guys. They have some great homemade soil here. One more thing, if you guys have any input on future shows that we should have, like what do you want to hear as a viewer? What do you want to watch? What can we cover? Who can we reach out to? This is a community affair, so be a part of the show. Let us know how we can help you, how we can bring content to you. Thanks to our studio here. Thanks to our production crew. Thanks to Todd and Chris. Thanks to Nick. We'll see you guys next week with Extract ED, talking about our first Green Lab study in Missouri. We're going to break that down in videos. We produced the whole thing. It's going to be a great event. We're going to have many more of those, so we would love your feedback on that as well. So we will see you next Thursday. Peace, love.